are live. Welcome to another episode of the Information Security Meetup podcast, and I have the great pleasure to introduce Steve Lubchansky, who is the head of Alliances and Partnership Horizon 3. Steve, thanks very much for joining the show. Much appreciated.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, David. Always a pleasure to be with you.
And thanks for the patience of, for me setting this up. We came back after Black Hat, and I had to redo all my camera equipment, so much appreciated. And we had the pleasure to connect at Black Hat as well. You guys did really well. So, in kind of a trivial question, how did you get to where you are today to be the head of partnerships and alliances at one of the fastest growing startups?
Well, how much time do you have?
I should get one of those sand clocks like that. We can sand watches there. Well, you can start, and I'll stop you somewhere.
Yeah, sure. If you could talk a little louder, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So, born in New York City, jumped right into technology sales. Became a manager over a sales team. In my 20s, in my mid 20s, and then I spent a lot of time growing sales teams for a couple different firms. Always in technology and security, and over time, I more and more started working with partnerships. As a young sales guy, you kind of go out there and you're pounding your chest, doing it yourself. And then probably around 20 years ago, I started working partnerships more. I was bought and sold, I think 5 times, and one of the times was when Nortel bought Bay Networks. And I was put in charge of a $500 million partner business. And that's when I really got into the business of partnerships and how to run a partner program and things of that nature. And ever since then, I've always been very prone to leveraging what I do through partnerships. It's always been a great way to sell. And now, as I get on in years, to tell you the truth, I didn't want to be an old sales guy. So I got myself very focused on partnerships, which really allows me not to be, an old sales guy, but more someone who works with companies to try to find a business alliance and relationships that we could go out there and be successful together. So that's really been my comfort zone, and just got lucky enough to get with Horizon 3, who just today, by the way, got an award from SC as the top hottest startup out there. Even though we're a couple years into this, 130 people, but not sure that's quite a startup, but. So that's how I got into, partnerships. Just love working with companies and finding ways in which we can go to market together. That's really my happy zone at this time in my career.
And Steve, that's a great intro. And I can tell you that I have to pull the thread on the sweater in a couple different areas. So why don't we start with the 5 times, mergers and acquisition and being bought and so on. So let me ask you this. First of all, it's everyone's dream, right? To get acquired or to get merged and so on. So people see it as the kind of the gold bucket at the end of the rainbow. Right. And what was the experience like, and again, I've been through it myself, and they always tell you, hey, keep doing what you're doing, for 3 months, and then SHTF, after 3 months, and then all of a sudden things completely change. But it's not about me. It's about you. What was your experience like?
Yeah. So each one was different, but I kind of had a few good, a few bad. Right. And just what you're saying, that everything is peaches and cream, and everything's going to be wonderful, and we're buying you because we need you, and we need your customer relationships, and so on and so forth. So it all depends. Some companies are really good at buying others up, and some and absorbing new employees, and all some are really good and some are just awful. I remember one time it was when Newbridge bought us, and I walked into the regional VP's office, right, to introduce myself, and he was blowing cigar smoke in my face. So I knew right then and there that I had to get out of there. So I was gone quickly.
Steve, is that because you were
So,
allergic to cigar smoke, or was there another reason?
no, I think it was because I was allergic to him. But in any case, and then there was a couple, like for instance, the Nortel scenario was really great. They really needed our technology, and it was really a great. It was great until the what hit the fan. Back about 20 years ago, and I each time I was with companies that I really liked working with. I kind of like the build part of it. So when larger entities, pick you up, I kind of, it was always, oh, this is great. I made a little money and moved on. But then you kind of get lost in the big company scenario, and then each time I was always in kind of mid management, and the what I after getting bought so many times, I said, okay, it's time. I got to go and go to start the startup phase of my career, and take it from there, which is where I'm at today. Yeah, so it's really interesting. You take me down memory lane about some good things. A couple of the companies I left right away because I didn't like the way it all looked and the way the orgs looked, and then a couple I really like that Nortel one where I had a tremendous opportunities and work with a lot of great people. So yeah, hopefully that answers your
Absolutely.
question.
I love that. And Steve, it's all about stories. That's what people remember. And, it's part of the kind of the selling process is you learn how to tell those stories, and somebody like yourself has these stories. So that's what I'm trying to, unravel. So tell me a bit, somebody like yourself can easily get a position in a larger, more established company, but there's specifically, you mentioned that there's something about building that you really like. And I would add another question to that. Do you find that coming to, for example, in this particular case in Horizon 3, and we'll get to it, you're building the channel program, and that will have, Steve stamp all over it because you're the head person and you have a chance to create that program in your DNA. Is that what you like about building, or is it something else?
Yeah, I do. I think there's actually another part of it, I believe. So I think in part of the building, you're not given a set of rules that you need to live by, right? Some people are analytical that way and really enjoy that, right? That part of it, the part where you kind of live by the rules that are laid out, you live by the structure that's been put into place and all. And I'm a little more freeform, right? And it's really good to be able to look in the mirror and know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Mine isn't to live by a very, very set of rules. It's more about understanding what the marketplace is, what your technology is, what your partnerships are, and start and working through them in this build mode versus being dictated to about what needs to get done. And that as I've gotten on in years and more, I really enjoyed that part of it, and also the entrepreneurial spirit and the energy and all that, which again, I keep saying as you get older, it's like the fourth time I said it. As you get older, it's kind of a theme as you get older. That tapping into that energy, I think, is something that keeps you revitalized all the time. Right,
And
working with young, exciting, interesting people, as well as really, really successful people that have done it before and really smart, the CEOs of the world, the people that have innovated. So all that is just so exciting. That whole pot of intelligence and the energy, which I really just love, and that's what I've really loved about the startup roles and building those partnerships from scratch.
But isn't there a level of comfort associated with a structure, and then when you come in and have to start reinvent something, there's also a lot of unknowns, right? So you don't know how well. Even the definition of a product sometimes at a startup is a bit of a work in progress. So it's not all as you mentioned, peaches and cream. There's a lot of heavy lifting that's required, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, I suppose comfort isn't my comfort zone. I suppose now that you bring it up, right? As soon as you said the word comfort, I'm like, I don't know if that's what I like. I kind of like getting up in the morning and feeling uncomfortable. Except on Saturdays and Sundays. I like to be comfortable on Saturdays and Sundays, and most evenings if I can. But I think from a work perspective and being a dyed-in-the-wool New York City street sales guy, I've always liked the action and that kind of thing. So and I always just backed away from the top companies. I could tell you a story about Cisco that you'd say, oh, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I took that job. I mean, maybe I wonder if there's anyone on the call that remember this, but I turned down. I was making so much money at Ungerman Bath. At Cisco offered me this huge job, but I couldn't go home and tell my wife I couldn't. I'm going to give up all this money. And but the thing about Cisco that I didn't like either, it's just the structure of it, and it was just a machine. And to me, I didn't want to be part of that. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, right? But I've always tried to get into a companies where we're fighting, every day for market share and all. That's it's uncomfortable, right? But I suppose that's my comfort zone when I get down to it.
Comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
And then let me ask you this. So I'm trying to keep all my questions in order. So before we dive into the kind of building a channel, we'll ask you a couple questions about that, since you have the, I would say, the luxury as well as the audacity to build the channels from scratch, channel program. But let me ask you this: you transitioned from being, carrying a bag, direct sales, to channel. What was that transition like? And is there certain attributes that a channel manager or somebody does a channel as opposed to doing direct sales with the customers, or they're interchangeable?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is you need to check your ego at the door more when you're doing the channel piece, right? Because now I think about when I was a young sales guy in my 20s, which was a while ago, that always wanted it to be, you wanted to win, you wanted to, shoot the deer, put it on your hood, and drive it through the streets so everyone could see that look what I did, look what I did. The thing about being a manager as well as working with the channel, which I find things are very, very similar as it relates to ego, right? Is that the success of others are what brings success and satisfaction to yourself. And I think that's part of it. The first word that came to mind when you asked that question was checking is ego, right? You kind of have to have a little different sense of things. And also, even though most salespeople are gregarious people, most of them, right? But you also have to just want to, enjoy success that others are having and do it together, right? Do it all at the same time. So you have to have this kind of empathetic kind of sense about you, where you're cool with understanding how others are feeling and how others are working, and making sure that they're happy and all that. So you have to have, check your ego at the door, be more empathetic, and kind of enjoy group success. There are plenty of great salespeople who are great people, right? I've always been loners, right? And I can think of a few right off the top of my head, and they're great, and I'm friends with several of them, right? That doesn't make them bad people, but it's just it's a different kind of feeling. Also, I think you also have to understand your own your own limitations as well. I feel like I'm on the couch here, talking to my psychiatrist. You have to kind of know your own limitations. Say, you know what? If I had these set of partners, I would be so much more successful because they'd help with the following things. So, and that's the other piece of it, right? And that changes as you go through your career, whether it's a technical issue that you need to, say, boy, I need this partner because I really need their technical expertise, or they're really good at selling to a certain segment of the market, that kind of thing. So if you recognize that, okay, here are my limitations, and you inject yourself into a partner program and say, okay, here's where we need to fill the gaps. That's the other part of it. Know your limitations, ego, and what was the other one I said? Empathy.
And don't worry, Steve. I'll send you the invoice right after, for that catharsis session, and then you can have a sip of water for a little bit, and then we can jump into the next one. But so it's funny you mentioned, very very interesting points. And it's not trivial for someone who carried a bag, let's say, for so many years, to jump into and start carrying what other people do and how their success is tied to yours, and empathy and all that stuff, which is fine. And there's no courses you can take, right? How do you actually physically do the transition? Like you don't okay, click on it, turn on the switch and all of a sudden you become all of this. Was there a transition period where you find yourself, struggling, or was it just completely natural for you?
I think it was fairly natural for me, come to think of it. I don't remember a time where it was painful or I struggled with it. And I think I'm going back to that Nortel buying Bay Networks situation. That's when it really turned the corner in terms of, wow, this if you build this kind of machine, it's just tremendous, and it's got all the aspects I want, right? Working with people, working with partners, the social aspects of it, right, as well, and you're selling, but you don't have to take it to that level of where you need to be in someone's face trying to close them all the time and that kind of thing. So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a force multiplier, right? I think that's what you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's certainly the leverage piece of partnerships is the amazing part that once you find that magic elixir to do that, it's unbelievable. And I know you'll transition to Horizon 3 eventually, but the thing that's different about Horizon 3, it's really interesting from the other ones, is it's very hard to go to a startup, and I've done 4 or 5, I forgot how many, and go right into a partner program, because most partners are catching a wave. They don't make waves, right? And we'll talk about it later, I suppose. We'll let you ask the questions, but instead of me guiding you, is Horizon 3 is just so different from that perspective because of how we do things in the technology and all. Just it's totally different. I mean, we're we're in this startup phase, and the partner stuff is just an explosion.
And by the way, you're doing great. It's just completely unscripted, so I don't have an agenda. We're just, I ask questions that I'm curious about, and hopefully it'll be be useful for the viewers as well. But this is a great segue. Let's jump into, how do you build a partner program? I know there's a lot of startups that essentially want to do that, for all the obvious reason we mentioned, force multipliers. In fact, I think that even the economic conditions today lend themselves really well to being a channel partner first. But there's a lot of times where there's a lot of things that need to change in the kind of DNA of the company. And I'm not going to steal your thunder, but talk to me about how do you move from a direct sales to channel first? What steps need to be taken, and how do you build that from the ground up?
Yeah, and the thing that you said from the ground up is really important, because you could go to a company and build a partner program, but the company culture is direct sales. That's a really difficult change, because the real critical thing about building a partner program from the ground up is that you have alignment from the top down. If you don't have alignment from the CEO to the CFO to the CRO to the VPs of sales, then it's a waste of time, because you're fighting uphill all the time, and you're going to have a lot more channel conflict, and that the things that you're preaching about wanting to be a partner with these companies, the way people act is going to be, it's going to make it so that you can't, it's going to be a lie that you're telling them. So I'm kind of giving you the negative part of that, which is that you need to have the environment that's really open to this from the top down. And it's really, really important, again, and this is kind of like, is do it beginning, you started out in an unstructured fashion, because you need to figure it out. You need to figure out what works. You need to figure out what the partners' business models are for this kind of thing. You need to find out how long it's going to take them to really get financial benefit from your solution. You need to figure out how long it's going to take them to get the technical aspects of it figured out, so that it's a part of their machine as well. So that's what part of the build is. And I can think of a couple startups where that was really, really difficult, because, again, channel partners typically aren't sitting there saying, okay, I want to spend the next 1 year evangelizing the solution, right? They typically want to go in and consult with clients about what they could do now to help them to in their IT infrastructures, and in this case cyber, which I've been involved with for many, many years. So you have to do that, and then you have to put in some structure, such as how the company is going to act. Rules of engagement, to me, is foundational, right? Pricing, that's, of course, things of that nature. But you need to have a rules of engagement so that the company acts in a certain way. And I'm going to segue for you again into Horizon 3, because that kind of thing is very, very difficult in a startup. It takes a longer time to build a channel program. It takes longer for the wave to be caught, and then you have to get the whole company to really figure it all out. In our company, the great thing about it is that from the CEO on down, we're going to do this with channels. So I don't know if I should name names or not, but you have someone like Bob Corente, who was instrumental, our CRO, in building the SentinelOne partner program. And I used to be a SentinelOne partner in my previous company from Horizon 3, and I was just amazed about what a great partner program was. So lo and behold, Bob Corente joins Horizon 3 the week after I did. I always kid him that I hired him, but I did not. The week after I did, and set the stage the day one that we're going to go partner. And it's from the top down. That's how we're going to go. So I have like no conflict. 99.9% of the time, I have no conflict within the company about how we're going to go to market. And that's so important. I can't tell you. It took me all these years to find this perfect blend of technology, startup, the energy, and the partner program. And the other thing is our solution. I'm not into sales modes here, but it's really good because most of the time companies use our type of technology using channel partners, right? So it's really easy from that perspective, where partners do need, our partners and our alliances do need this kind of technology to service their clients. So those are the whole thing just needs to work so well, and in this case the comfort is great because all those things are just working so magnificently from the support you get from the top down to the partners needing this to the ease at which the solution works for partners. So time to market and time to value, it's just so wonderful that it really just is incredible. So I wish I knew this, 20 years ago about looking for this exact kind of, situation that it's just really ideal for me. And because I've been around the block so many times, I have I have relationships out there that I can really help people with, and just some muscle memory to work with some of the people that are learning how to work with partners, and I'm just enjoying that whole thing. I kind of went off the rails there. I'm trying to remember the question you even asked, right?
Well,
About it was kind of like building the program. So part of it is with a startup, you need to really pick when. Here's the moment we could go with a partner, right? With partners, and like I said, I've said it a couple times already about they really want the marketplace to have already emerged. It doesn't have to be at the top of the crest, but it could be right below the top of the crest, but moving that direction. I can hop on the surfboard and take it into shore. That's kind of the way
I was about to
are.
ask you, when is it too early or when is it too late? And you just answered that.
Yeah, that's it. And we're, for Horizon 3, we're right on, headed up like that. So partners can hop on. And like I said, it's really easy, and it's the kind of thing that, it's innovative, but they need to use our type of technology to, to defend themselves right against cyber attack. So it's really a great situation.
And you mentioned specifically that you experience what a great channel, amazing, great like channel programs look like, and then you experience the other side, and you touch upon certain things like the leadership, the alignment, the product, and so on. Anything else that comes to mind to having a really phenomenal partner program? And then on the flip side to that, not to confuse you, what are the top 1 or 2 reasons why some of the channel programs fail?
So I think the number one reason is that it starts and stops and starts and stops. You have to do it over a long period of time in a very, very consistent fashion. So if you say, okay, we're going to go channel, and then 4 or 5 months later, the CEO says, no, we're not going to go channel. We're going to go more direct, and then 6 months later, they say, oh, we're going to go channel. You're done. From that perspective, that program will never,
Steve,
take off.
I've personally experienced something like that, and I can tell you're absolutely right. You confuse the hell out of the partners, and it's like building trust, right? You don't need a lot to break it. It's very hard and tedious to build one, but once you do something a little, once they find out that you somehow decided to move away and they find out you're selling now direct, you're done, right? So there's not a lot of room for wiggle there. So I
like the Sentinel One scenario. Sorry to interrupt you, but the Sentinel One scenario, and even though my boss used to be the guy over there, I'm not buttering him up, but I was a fairly early partner, and where their program was taking off, and over like a 3-year period, it didn't waver. It was just straight ahead, and it was great doing that kind of business. And so that's the first thing I think of is in my history where it's starting and stopping. And then the other one is choosing when to do it, right? When you're a startup, typically you got to build your customer base. So at Horizon 3, our first year, even though there was some partners right before me that jumped on, the main thing was getting a whole bunch of customers, 30, 40 new customers using it, right? And you don't need to do that through partners, but that doesn't mean that your long-term strategy is direct. That's a short-term strategy to get your product out there. But once you see it out there and make that decision, it needs to be dedicated, it needs to be consistent, and needs to be from the top down. Those are the things that just come to mind. But you need to choose the right time to do it. After you've proven it out in the marketplace and you have the credibility out there, the technology, it's all ready, right? And that's an interesting one too, is that part of that being not too early is that the product is really cooking. It's really running, right? And it's easy for the partner to hop on the bandwagon and go. Because if they're part of it being a mess, then they're in front of their customers, it'll be a mess, and then that's a problem too. So the timing of when you do it as a startup, that is really critical too. And Horizon 3, I might as well go to the sales pitch there. When I came aboard in October, it had already been running in like 20 or 30 accounts. And now we've, 5 times that number of accounts now, and 70 partners.
Wow. I like it.
Right.
You sprinkle Horizon 3 on our
sprinkled it. I sprinkled it in there. and you also have to understand that if you're also getting into the international and federal markets, that's natural partnership. You have to do partnerships there. So if you want to get into those markets, you better have your company alignment down, right? Across the globe, in my opinion. So, and in this case, that's the case too with us with federal and international investments we're making there, natural channel programs.
So, again, not everything is peaches and cream. There's certain issues, not issues, but I would say things that come up when you building a channel program. Things that come to mind, for example, is some people view the channel as being lazy, not being useful, just, all of the above. That's number one. Number two, sometimes, more often than not, you're like kind of the ugly sibling, as a channel, and everybody wants to deal with the manufacturers because you have all the knowledge, you have all the tools, you have the product, you're the product owner, and so nobody wants to deal with the channel. Let's touch upon these two. What's your take on that? What I just said?
Well, I have to be careful here because I have channel partners maybe watching this, but they come in all different.
We can have Steve. We can have a separate one where you obfuscate you or pixelate you, and then so nobody knows you. We can talk in general terms.
I'm always a glass half full guy, by the way, just so you know. It's not half empty. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. For instance, we're in the AWS marketplace. That's an alliance of ours, right? We run up at AWS. So they're not lazy. They're not sitting around unbelievably successful. And they're going to help us so much in terms of our growth projections and all, right? So, but just like in any, just like with salespeople, right? That when you think about it, not every salesperson, usually it's the kind of the 80-20 rule. You're doing 80% of your business with 20% of your partners, right? Some of them are strategic, some are tactical. Some need you on occasion, and some need you all the time, right? So you need to have that mix. So we have a bunch of partners that will do 1 or 2 deals with us a year, right? And they're happy with that, and that's fine. And then we'll have some partners that every week they're selling something, and so does that mean the other guys are lazy? No, but then you have to really pick your spots and say, this partner is going to be, oh, where'd you go? I can't see you anymore.
Yeah, let me just make sure.
Which partners are going to be strategic and which are going to be tactical, and which ones are worth investing in more, right? And which ones do you need to be opportunistic with versus strategic? I'm looking into the black hole here. There you are.
I came back.
Yeah, so so you have to have a balance of all those different partnerships, and like the 70 we have right now. Some of them, several of them are going to be 1 or 2, clients a year, and that's fine, right? That's fine. And some of them are going to be, really, really big. But there's usually just a few that become really, really strategic at our stage of development, right? That's different 5 years from now.
And how do you, and Steve, how do you overcome what I just mentioned, that a lot of customers just want to deal with you directly sometimes due to the obvious reasons?
Yeah, so very difficult situation normally, right? The best way to handle that is let them know very, very early in the discussions, right? That the way that we're doing business, the way that we're structured, the way that we're financially structured, the way that our investors like us to work, the way that, the machine works, is we're doing it through a third party of some kind, right? And you have to look them in the eye and put your hand over your heart and say, that doesn't mean that you're losing me. That means you're gaining something. It's me plus, right? It's not me minus. It's me plus. And who knows, that partner may lead to some other business for you, may lead to some other opportunities for you. That's a good thing. That doesn't mean you lose me. As a matter of fact, with Horizon 3, that where the software resides is where you take care of them. So that a channel partner may end up just doing the transaction, and the partner, our customer success team, works with that customer. But you just do it up front, do it early, be honest with them, and just say that's your business model. Now, as a startup, that's why we're not 100% partner. We're like 99-ish %, right? Every so often, a company will come to you and, some strategic big company and say, listen, this is the way we're going to do it, or, get out of here. And sometimes you just have to do it. So.
Yeah. And what about the time it takes, right? Because as a startup, you mentioned specifically, you got to move fast, right? So it's all about the next quarter, the next round of funding, and so on. And a lot of times, the investment it takes to ramp up a channel conflicts with that. Any thoughts about that?
I don't know. I in this case, I don't think. Or the case I'm in right now, I don't think that's a roadblock. I think, but sometimes, right? It could slow things down, and the sales team would say, "Oh, it's slowing things down." So you need to have a good partner team that could help to make sure that that doesn't happen, make sure the contracts are in place, make sure everything is a grease skid, because that is part of it, right? Is making sure that that's something that's really smooth and quick and easy, and nothing that's going to be a big problem. AWS Marketplace is really help us in that frame. We just had a large multinational company, manufacturing company, that want to do a very large deal with us, and AWS is our partner, and they did it through the marketplace, and it made it quicker and easier. So it's both sides of the story, but the point you're making is valid. You just have to have all the things in place to make sure that the customer doesn't have to go through a mess or more time and all. So.
And Steve, you're doing great. All these conversations are like completely unscripted, and you do not have the list of
From
questions.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still on the couch here, wondering about my life. While you're talking.
MSSPs and MSPs are the fastest growing segments of the kind of the services reseller market. And they have a unique requirements. All they care about is the monthly recurring revenue, and they want the ability to turn it on and off to the customer. A lot of times they don't want to make the investment up front. They want to kind of like, pay as you go. How did you align yourself to that? Again, it's just kind of I like to uncover some of the challenges and how you as a channel professional overcome some of those.
Yeah, if I could get back to the current scenario, it's a great question. And because our technology is fairly new in the marketplace, no pun intended, that the MSPs and MSSPs need some time to ramp up their business as relates to this. Traditionally, pen testing is done, one at a time and not as a service. That's a burgeoning market for MSPs and MSSPs. So, but to say, okay, I really like that technology, I'm going to adopt it. From day one, it's going to take them months to ramp it up, right? They have to go out and build the model inside their infrastructure. They need to go to their clients and start building up a backlog and start deploying it. So, quite frankly, I work out deals with our service partners, right, depending on what their ramp is, and give a scenario of very low investment up front and pay as you go. So your success is my success, right? And that's been working out very, very well, that kind of approach, because these are brand new recurring revenues for these companies. So they're very into it, and they see the time to value so quick, and it's so easy to deploy. So in this case, I love the question, Dave, because I can think of like 4 meetings I had last week, where I had to go through this, right? Where the MSSP's done the testing, and they saw this thing and they said, this thing is so good, I want to do it, but I need some time. So we'll invest the time and effort to train them. We have a new certification program. I know I'm getting into selling here a little bit, but it's unscripted, and as you know, and it's really the kind of thing where you need to, as a company, invest in our partners' success and give them time, get them, make sure they have their time to market.
So super interesting pieces on the channel program and what MSSPs and MSP care about. And as you mentioned, it's all about making it easier for them to get to revenue and all the pieces. But again, it's something
give them some time, give them some runway, right, and not overburden them financially up front, but look, take the longer view, right? And grow with them. And I find that that's the best way to work with these companies.
So what's next for the channel program specifically for Horizon 3? You came a long way. I guess I'm assuming you have the kind of world dominance program in place or plan. Maybe you can give me some ideas of where that's going.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, especially with the AWS Marketplace piece, and that's huge. That's been a real. I was going to use the word blessing, but that's a little bit too mushy. But it's really been amazing being part of building that, right, and showing and working with AWS and the field and all the things about that you just see how unbelievable it is. And because we run up in the AWS cloud, and because cyber is so important, and things like Google buying Mandiant, putting that extra special cyber focus, it's really just been amazing to be part of that whole process. But the next thing for us is as I've built my team out of real, great veterans of partners and all, just a tremendous team, great people, is going to the next level of the larger partners and working through that. And that's kind of the phase we're in right now, right? Is we have people out in the field working with partners all the time. Then there's a few partners that, and typically, David, it's you don't get those kind of partnerships early on in your company's career, but because of this, all the other things I told you about the company technology and all, we're about to get involved with a few really, really large companies, and on the precipice of contracts in hand, and on the precipice of really exploding. And those are company makers. Everything I just told you about, those make companies and make greatness and make success. So that's our next step, and it's right as I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. We're right there, and it's happening now. It's execution time, right? With those big guys,
right? So. And enterprise sales is changing, right? So the buyer behavior, the demographics are changing. Kind of my last question is in terms of, how do you then adapt to that as well? Because again, we're channel sales is not the same today as it was 5 years ago, not even 2 years ago, I don't think. How are you as a person who's a leader, adapting to that, is looking into the future to make sure that you're on point?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I didn't say enterprise too much because we've been talking more about the channel program, but those kind of partners we've been that are emerging for us are really our keys to getting to the larger enterprise. There are some things that we've developed internally to allow us to do that. Like the product is unbelievably scalable. Right, very, very flexible from that standpoint. That'll help us as we go upstream. Even though I still think our sweet spot is still in the mid-tier of the marketplace, where the skill sets aren't as prevalent as it is in the enterprise, where you may have 20 pen testers on staff, where you have a mid-sized company with 0. And their need for an MSSP or a service partner to do this kind of thing is great. So, yeah, I think getting with the larger partners will help us big time in the enterprise. We're building a team of enterprise salespeople as well as we speak. We've had some great successes with some great names already that are over the moon about the solution and are referenceable. and that's critical too. Having that as well. And the enterprise accounts will have a little bit of a tendency to, on occasion, to want to do it themselves. So have this they have the skill set in house to just bring our solution on and run it. I don't know if I'm answering your question very adroitly, but it's the way I see it is I see several new enterprise accounts coming on board. Most of them are referenceable. Some of them are brand new and are on the way to referenceability. When they've tested the solution, they're just great about it. And I think the sky's the limit as it relates to to enterprise kind of sales. And I think I mentioned to you we have a federal initiative going on that is going great also. So I'm trying to remember what your question was again, but hopefully I answered it, David.
Yeah, you did. I mean, indirectly, I asked specifically about like how things are changing from the kind of the buying process on the enterprise, and then as that, there's the channel program needs to adapt to that as well.
There is something that I'm seeing out there, and not to be selling our solution, but I believe that the enterprise is also, and I've seen this in several accounts recently, coming from Black Hat and RSA and all, and some of the testing we've been doing, is I think the enterprise is looking to reduce the amount of software tools that are out in their infrastructures. And it's a way to simplify things and also save money, right? We could help in that environment too. We actually have had a couple of very, very large clients come on board using our solution actually to vet their infrastructure tools that they're using today. So if you go out there and you attack those tools and they're not doing a real good job, what do you need them for? So I'm seeing that also, right? Because that reduces complexity and that reduces cost, and I see that especially with the what is looks like somewhat of a recession coming. If you want to listen to everybody, that's the case, even though I don't see that in the cyber world. But certainly that's an interesting one that's coming up, is trying to reduce complexity, but still keep the defenses up. I'm seeing that a lot recently.
Absolutely, Steve, and I love the conversation. I hope you feel a little bit better. I'll have my assistant schedule the next therapy session.
Yes, I feel great, but I'm getting up off the couch now. That was great. It was very therapeutic. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my body talking to you, Dave. Yeah, me email. I was the first Steve in the company, so it's steve@horizon3.ai, and that's a great way, or just hop on the website. So, and love to engage in discussions. And thank you, David, for the time. And I just feel so much better.
It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you in New York so we can continue our conversation in private.
Sounds good, David.
Take care.
See you.
See you.